Hi, I'm Sarah from SidetrackSarah.com, and today we are going to make 10 low-carb, slow cooker and Instant Pot freezer meals in about an hour. So I got together 10 of my easiest recipes for the low-carb meal plan that I do, and I decided to put it all in one so we could just have a really fast assembly of freezer meals for a low-carb, for those of us that are trying to stick to a low-carb diet, especially since January is about here, and I managed to fall off the low-carb bandwagon during the holiday season, so I'm ready to get started before my cruise in March. I'd like to lose a few pounds, and anyway, it's time to get started eating healthier again and to cut out all that sugar. So one of the things you'll notice about the low-carb meals that I do is they're typically very full of fresh fruits and vegetables, so they're not as easy to assemble as the regular meal plan that I like to put together that's a lot of open cans and dumps. So I spent about 20 minutes cutting up vegetables before I started the video. I have some sliced and chopped red pepper, some chopped green pepper, some different cuts of onions and celery and kale. So yeah, that took a little longer, but 20 minutes wasn't too much time to devote to the chopping of the vegetables, because now we're just going to open our bags and fill them as fast as we can. All right, so the first one I'm going to do is creamy onion pork chops. Now I went ahead and wrote on every bag before we started as well, so you don't have to sit there and watch me write. And then I have these bag stands. They see how they fold down so you can store them in a drawer or something if you want to. And they get taller and shorter, and then you just attach them to the sides of the bag. Sometimes if you get a lot in here, they tend to try to fall over, but overall they help you to steady your bag and keep it open while you're trying to fill these things up. And you can get these on Amazon. I'll post a link below in the information, the show notes. So, all right, I put all of my meat down in a freezer cold bag so it doesn't get too warm while I'm cooking. But since this is a really fast cooking session, it shouldn't be bad in this freezer bag. So if you see me squat down and get stuff out of this bag, I'll show you. This is my bag of meat. And so we're gonna start with those pork chops. I'll get them out. And let's see. I was going to say, this is for 10 dinner recipes that feeds about 6 people, 6 adults to be exact. And so if you have a small family, you'll definitely have leftovers. If you have a bigger family, you might need to 1.5 these recipes, but it works pretty well for our family of most of the time 8, because we have 2 or 3 little kids that don't eat very much, but we have several big kids that do eat a lot. So 6 adult size portions works for us, and so keep that in mind as you're cooking. Now for this, grab a knife. I'm going off of my printed recipes that are half printed because my toner is running out and I haven't replaced it yet. So if you see me studying my paper, that's why. All right, so we're gonna go with 8 pork chops. And this is actually 10, or no, is it 9? 1, 2, no, it's 8, okay. Never mind, I can't count. So 8 pork chops. And then we're gonna salt and pepper it. All right, this said to salt and pepper to taste, so I'm just going to throw in a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. We can always add more after it cooks. So that was a ½ teaspoon each that I did. And then we need about a cup of onion, which is half of this chopped onion. And then And we're gonna do 2 cups of water and 2 bouillon cubes. But you could wait to do the 2 cups of water if you want, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it so it'll start dissolving these bouillon cubes in the fridge and freezer while it's thawing or whatever it's doing. So, but you definitely don't have to do that. I'm gonna put 2 cups of water here. And then that's about it. I would just make sure that your bouillon cube gets down into the water if possible. So you might swish it around a little bit. And then you're gonna seal that. And then you might test it to make sure that nothing leaks, because sometimes when it has a lot of liquid, you'd be amazed at how you think it's sealed and it still leaks. So there's our first one. I'm gonna put it there. All right, so next we're going to do Italian sausage and peppers. And that requires putting all of these ingredients into a freezer safe bag. And it only called for 8 Italian peppers, sausage links, I mean. But each of these has 10, so I'm just gonna throw all 10 of them in there. When these are cooking, you may want to, after they're cooked, you'll probably chop them up. You won't eat them probably whole, unless you'd like to eat them on a bun or something like that. All right, and now we have the 1 green pepper I'm gonna put in there. A sliced onion, which I put over here, not in a container, so I'm gonna grab what I can and try not to drop it. All right, now I've got a can of crushed tomatoes I'm gonna add to it. Next we need a 1/4 cup of chicken broth. And then we need a teaspoon of salt. A teaspoon of pepper, unless you have some sensitive to heat people in your house, then I would leave this out or just reduce it. And then a 1/2 teaspoon of oregano, basil, garlic powder. That. Basil. And garlic powder. And if you hear loud noises, it sounds like my kids are just getting home. Then a 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. And then you can, there's number 2, and you can just quickly seal that. And place it there. Okay, so recipe number 3 is lime pork chops. I managed to forget the lime juice at the store, so we're gonna have lemon. Not gonna be quite as good, but it works. But you won't forget the lime pork chops because I just fixed my grocery list and it will be right when it comes to you. All right. So we started with 8 pork chops. It actually calls for 3 pounds of bone-in, and I decided to change it to boneless because I prefer it. And then we use 2/3 of a cup of chicken broth, a 1/3 cup of lime juice, and a 1/2 cup of salsa. And we do a 1/2 teaspoon of cumin. Three-quarters of a teaspoon of garlic powder. Three-quarters of a teaspoon of salt. And 3/4 of a teaspoon of pepper. So I'm just doing a little less than a teaspoon. I can't get the lid off. There we go. So then we close that. And we squish it all around so that it mixes up nicely and it's a nice marinade that way. Alright, so that's done. Meal number 3. Now we move on to chicken parmesan. So for this one, I'm going to use a no sugar pasta sauce. I found that in Classico and it says no sugar added kind of right down here, but it took me a long time to find it. So if you have a small town, it might be a little harder to find than if you're in a big town. Wow, I made a mess, but all right, so I'm gonna start with 1.5 cups of the pasta sauce, and I'll just save this in my fridge, the rest of it, for another time when I need it. And then a large can of Italian diced tomatoes, a 6-ounce can of tomato paste, okay, so then after I've got all the sauce ingredients in there, I just add 6 chicken breasts, boneless, skinless chicken breasts. And I usually just do the frozen version. But you don't have to do that. You can always do the other instead. And then I swish it to cover it all. And I lay it flat. Number 5 is pesto chicken. And the pesto chicken calls for chicken thighs, boneless, skinless chicken thighs. I could not find anywhere on mine that said boneless, skinless, and it is not. So I was hoping, because on the tag at Walmart it said BS, and I was hoping that meant boneless, skinless, but no such luck. So I guess we're doing full bones and skin, partial skin, I guess. Alright, and I'm going to pour in the pesto. Yeesh. And then it calls for 2 tablespoons of chicken broth. I'm going to put that in there so I can shake it around and get it all out. Then it calls for some salt and pepper. Just says to sprinkle it on each one. I'm just going to put it in the bag. Spread that all around, and that one's done. Next is lemon garlic chicken, and that calls for 6 chicken breasts. 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, and a 1/4 cup of water, a teaspoon of oregano. Getting low. And also 1 teaspoon of bouillon powder, which I'm just going to use 1 cube instead. 2 teaspoons of minced garlic. And then 3 tablespoons of lemon juice. Mix that around nicely so it coats everything well. Now we are up to 6 and ready for 7. And this one is chicken and kale soup. So on this one I'm going to improvise a little bit. I was supposed to have the boneless, skinless chicken thighs. And the ones I ended up with were not boneless and skinless. And so instead of doing bones in my soup, I decided to use some pre-cooked chicken meat that I actually made a couple days ago. My husband made a rotisserie chicken, or 2 of them, and I have some leftover meat. So I'll just use that meat instead. It's pre-cooked, but it won't hurt it to get cooked again in the soup. And then I'm going to do 46 ounces of chicken broth. I'm supposed to blend some in the blender. Since it's a small amount, I'll do it in this little cup. It's a 1/2 cup of onion, and then a 1/2 cup of olive oil. It's more full than I was expecting. Let's see how that works. Put that in the blender. And pour that into the chicken. I'm going to put all these kale leaves in. Seems like a lot, but they will cook down quickly. And then a 1/4 cup of lemon juice. Says you can salt to taste, and we'll just wait and do that on cooking day. You know what? I forgot to do the rest of the chicken broth. I thought that seemed like not very much broth. Nobody says I ever do this perfectly. Let's see. That looks like it might turn into a soup more. Starting to wonder, where's the soup gonna come from? Oh yeah. So make sure it's really well sealed so that it doesn't leak at all. So no leaks. We got 7 done. Okay, next we've got mozzarella steak tips. We are going to put 2 pounds of stew meat in, or you could use round steak or flank steak, and cut that into strips or leave it in steaks. We're just going to use these tips because it's easier, or the stew meat because it's easier for me. be about right. Then we need a 1/2 cup of water, a jar of basil pesto. It sure does not make it look pretty in the bag, but it sure tastes good. Two teaspoons of minced garlic, a container of grape tomatoes. And that's all. I'm just going to get the air out of this and then mix it all around again. And with that only having a 1/2 cup of water, if you decide to do it in the Instant Pot, you might want to add another 1/2 cup of water to it. Otherwise, it should be fine. This one's going to take 2 freezer bags. The first one, we're going to put our broccoli and red pepper into it. So, because we'll have to add that, I believe it's this one, red pepper. So that's all for this bag. And then for the next bag, it's a little more complicated. We do all the stew meat. Everything's collapsing. There we go. All the stew meat, along with another package. It's supposed to be 2 pounds. And I had bought 2 packages to equal 4 pounds, and I was splitting in between these 2 recipes here. And then we need a cup of beef broth. A tablespoon of minced garlic. A 1/2 teaspoon of crushed red pepper. We go with a 1/2 teaspoon of ground ginger. It called for fresh and I forgot to get it, but I typically will, for easy's sake, I will substitute with ground ginger. And then a sweetener. It says 3 tablespoons of stevia. This is new stevia, which is a little bit sweeter, so I'll probably just go with a teaspoon of that. Kind of wondering if I should do less. I might just do a 1/2 teaspoon. But if you have a regular stevia sweetener, do the 3 tablespoons. Meal number 9 is done, and we're ready for our last one. And that is Italian pot roast. For the Italian pot roast, you'll put a roast in, and then I chopped 5 stalks of celery, and there's a red onion, and red bell pepper. I'm going to take this off of here now because it's getting rather full already, because I also need to add a jar of pepperoncinis. And I'm doing that with all the juices, so it will give it a nice flavor. Kind of like a Mississippi pot roast, but not quite. It's got the extra veggies. Now, in addition, we need a teaspoon each of some oregano, basil, and thyme. Oregano, basil, and then that is the end of meal number 10. Mix up the fluid a little bit to get the spices around. And that's that. All right, we did it. We've done all 10 low carb, slow cooker, and Instant Pot recipes. If you'd like to get these recipes, the assembly instructions, and the grocery list, just visit my site. And if you sign up for the freezer to slow cooker and Instant Pot meal plan, I will give this to you as my free gift. I would love for you to join me in that program. And if you do decide to sign up for that meal plan, you get a new weekly meal plan every Friday that includes 6 recipes and also the grocery list and assembly instructions for that. And we have a low carb one and we have a regular meal plan. So I hope to see you join me there, and let me know if you have any questions at all.